Hey everybody, I'm here for another episode of Bible Q&A. Today we're discussing, are you in control of your life? There are three main things that cause us to lose control of our lives. The first is excess. We can talk about greed and lust and wrath as different vices, but in reality they're all the same. They are excess. It's experiencing natural feelings like wanting to have money or getting angry at people and not having a brake valve or an off switch when they grow too large and start disturbing other parts of life. Or not being able to reflect on such feelings first before acting on them. For example, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be rich. The patriarchs and kings like David and Solomon were very rich because of how powerful they were. But greed is what drives people to go after extra wealth, the kind they have to get by oppressing other people, like the nobles in Nehemiah chapter 5 did with their predatory loans, or by fraud and theft, like Achan in Joshua chapter 7. The best way to deal with greed is to plan from the start to have a moderate lifestyle, like the son of Jacob did in Proverbs chapter 30 verses 8 to 9, so that any extra money that comes in will be a safety net and not an opportunity to look for even more wealth. After all, contentment isn't about being okay with being poor. It's about being okay with being financially stable, whether with a low income or a high income, and being okay with not having things that would rock that stability. St. Paul advised, "Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned, in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." Philippians chapter 4, verse 11. Lust and wrath are similar. God gave David several different women to marry, according to 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 8, and yet he had to go and sleep with someone who already had a husband. If David believed that one wife alone is a blessing, as shown by Proverbs chapter 12, verse 4, then he would praise God and be content with the wives he already had, instead of going after someone who is already taken. And as for wrath, nearly all violence can be tied to excess anger, like Cain's murder of Abel in Genesis chapter 4 and Joab's murder of Abner in 2 Samuel chapter 3 verse 30. Anger like that makes you lash out on other people because you can't handle it inwardly. If you can keep your anger in check, or better still, resolve conflicts before they spiral out of control, as Jesus advised in Matthew chapter 5 verses 24 to 26, then you won't even need to resort to violence to solve your issues with people. You'll be content with God's assurance in Romans chapter 12 verse 19 that he'll deal with our enemies so that we don't have to. The second main thing I've found that can influence people's lives are other people. For example, employers are a big influence on people's lives. They decide when you leave home and when you come back, so you have to plan your family life around that. So if you want to teach your kids about the Bible, as advised by Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 7, you might have to work around your work schedule. Friends are also a major influence on someone's life. Sometimes you can trust your friends over people who have better advice. Amnon was actually unwilling to rape Tamar in 2 Samuel chapter 13 verse 2 until Jonadab showed him how to corner her into a room. Not that that makes him less of a rapist, but it shows the influence that friends can have on people. That's why it's important for Christians to find virtuous companions. As St. Paul advised, "But now I have written unto you not to keep company. If any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, with such a one know not to eat." 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 11. Not only do these kinds of friendships keep out the negative qualities of friendships like Jonadab's, but they also bring positives, like extra support when dealing with challenges to one's faith. Finally, the third entity that can take control of someone's life is Satan. Advising pastors on the proper way to preach, St. Paul mentioned that their goal was to take believers out of the traps of Satan, and that they may recover themselves out of the snare of the devil, who are taken captive by him at his will. 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 26. But how does he do this? Well, the first strategy is to take stuff away from us. For example, Satan took away a lot of the stuff Job got from God, which he believed was a major reason Job was serving Jehovah in the first place. And he succeeded in getting his wife to lose faith in him. However, although Job certainly complained about his fate, he never renounced his belief in God. He knew that even though Jehovah existed eternally, riches don't, according to Proverbs chapter 23 verse 5. so he didn't let that loss affect his relationship with God. Like Paul in Philippians chapter 4 verses 12 to 13, he knew how to both suffer and abound. The second strategy is the opposite. He gives stuff to us that might cause us to lose faith in God. For example, Satan offered Jesus all the kingdoms of the world in Matthew chapter 4 verses 8 to 9. All he had to do to rule over them was to bow down to him. However, Jesus knew that in order to rule a bigger kingdom, he would have to submit to God alone, as shown by Philippians chapter 2 verses 8 to 10. And he had enough contentment to accept the kingdom God gave to him, a virtue extolled by St. Paul to Timothy. But godliness with contentment is great gain. 1 Timothy chapter 6 verse 6. If Jesus could reject being king of the world, we can reject bribes or shady business deals that are just there to make ourselves a bit richer. Thus, when we manage to identify the things that cause us to lose control of our lives, we can start building strategies to help us remain independent, like a king building up his city's defenses. As it was said in Proverbs, "He that hath no rule over his own spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls." Proverbs chapter 25 verse 28. However, he that is slow to anger is better than the mighty, and he that ruleth his spirit than he that taketh a city. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 32. And I think I've said plenty on the subject. Are you in control of your life? If you like this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Goodbye everyone.